Today, I'm going to add one amazing superstar using every Pro Bowl game. The goal is to construct a roster to compete for a Super Bowl in just one season, but we have to fill out the entire roster by using one player from every NFL team. This means we cannot add more than one player from the same NFL team to our roster, which will make this even more challenging. I put the last 42 Pro Bowl games onto this wheel spin, and the first one lands on the 2015 Pro Bowl. So many great choices like Russell Wilson, Travis Kelce, Aaron Donald, and Bobby Wagner, just to name a few. But I think I have to go with the greatest defensive player in our generation in Aaron Donald. Now that we added our first players to the roster, we can no longer add another player from the Rams, and the 2015 Pro Bowl is removed from the wheel. To keep this interesting, we will be alternating between one defensive and one offensive player from each Pro Bowl, and the next one lands on the 1980 Pro Bowl. And since we have to pick an offensive position, I think it's only right to pick one of the running backs in Walter Payton or Earl Campbell. Both are really good options, so I elected to bring in Walter Payton as our starting running back. The next wheel spin lands on the 2010 Pro Bowl, and there were some incredible defensive players invited to the Pro Bowl, including Julius Peppers, Troy Polamalu, Ray Lewis, and Darrelle Revis. This one is really tough for me, so I decided to make a poll on YouTube, and the winner ended up being Ray Lewis, so he will be our starting middle linebacker. If we are unable to fill a certain position on the team, we will have to sign a 70 or below free agent player to fill that spot, which will ultimately hurt our chances of winning a Super Bowl. Right into the next wheel, and it lands on the 2022 Pro Bowl, and since we have to pick an offensive player, I narrow my choices down to Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, and Jamar Chase. Can't really go wrong with any of these choices, but I decided to go with Justin Jefferson as wide receiver 1, since Tyreek Hill played in quite a few Pro Bowls, so we might have a chance at getting him later on. Let me know in the comments if I made the wrong decision with any of my choices here. And moving right into the next wheel spin, it lands on the 2017 Pro Bowl, and after scrolling through some of the defensive options, we have to go with Jalen Ramsey, who will be our lockdown cornerback. Since he technically plays for the Dolphins currently, this is a team that we will knock off the list. The next wheel spin is going to land on the 1988 Pro Bowl, and the offensive choices we have are Jerry Rice, Anthony Munoz, and Bruce Matthews. I know we already added Justin Jefferson, but how could we pass up on the greatest receiver of all time? Bringing in Jerry Rice as wide receiver number 1 and moving Justin Jefferson to wide receiver number 2. Keeping this moving, the next wheel spin lands on the 2018 Pro Bowl, and since we have to pick a defensive player, we might be missing out on Patrick Mahomes. Luckily, Myles Garrett and Derwin James both made an appearance. And since we already have Donald on the defensive line, let's add Derwin James as our safety from the Chargers. Spinning the wheel twice, and the next two Pro Bowls we can pick a player from are 2020 and 1995. Unfortunately, the 2020 Pro Bowl was canceled, but they still made their selections, and this one was an absolute no-brainer. Bringing in Patrick Mahomes, who was named the starter for the AFC team, and he will be our starting quarterback. As for 1995, we have a few Hall of Famers to choose from like Reggie White, Bruce Smith, and Charles Haley, but I elected to bring in Reggie White to play alongside Aaron Donald, knocking off the Chiefs and Packers with those two selections. With 9 NFL teams already knocked off, our offense is looking elite with Patrick Mahomes leading the way, and the defense is in great hands with Aaron Donald and Reggie White up front. And after spinning the wheel, it lands on the 2019 Pro Bowl. And since we have to take an offensive player, we desperately need some O-line help. So let's go with Quentin Nelson from the Colts, and he'll be our starting left guard. The next Pro Bowl we have to use is going to be 2003. And unfortunately, we can't take Ed Reed or Dwight Freeney since we already use our teams, but I decided to bring in Derek Brooks from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as our outside linebacker. Moving this along, the next two wheel spins lands on 2014 and 2012. Two relatively easy choices here, bringing in Zach Martin at right guard, who actually made the Pro Bowl as a rookie this year, followed by J.J. Watt, who will join Aaron Donald and Reggie White on the defensive line, knocking off the Cowboys and Texans from the list. After just taking two future Hall of Famers, the next wheel spin lands on the 2007 Pro Bowl, and I really wanted to take Tony Gonzalez or Jason Witten, but we already used the Chiefs and we used the Cowboys, so I elected to bring in Joe Thomas from the Cleveland Browns, who will be our left tackle. And right into the next wheel spin, it lands on the 2021 Pro Bowl. And since we have to bring in a defensive player, I narrowed down the choices to TJ Watt, Max Crosby, and Marshawn Lattimore. I can't pass up on TJ Watt, and he will be joining an already stacked linebacker core. Spinning the wheel again, we now have to pick an offensive player from the 2002 Pro Bowl. Plenty of great options like Ricky Williams, Lincoln Kennedy, and Jeremy Shockey, but since we don't have a tight end on the roster yet, let's bring in Shockey from the Giants. Lions. And just like that, we have knocked off half the NFL teams, and I really like how the team is looking so far. An elite offense with plenty of weapons from Patrick Mahomes, and a defense that should have no problem getting a stop. Still have a lot of work to do, but the next wheel spin lands on the 1990 Pro Bowl, and we have to pick a defensive player. So many great defensive options, but our choices are limited, so I decided to bring in Steve Atwater from the Denver Broncos, who will be our starting free safety. Moving on to a couple more wheel spins, it lands on 1997 and then 2013 right after. A couple of choices on offense in Kevin Glover and Tony Baselli on the offensive line, so I elected to bring in Tony Baselli as our starting right tackle. As for 2013, let's go with Ndamukong Suh to play right behind Aaron Donald at D tackle, knocking off Jacksonville and Detroit from the list. The team is really starting to come together, and the next wheel spin lands on 1982. Pretty easy choice here, bringing in Marcus Allen of the Raiders to be our backup running back. With just 12 NFL teams left, the next couple wheel spins lands on 2016, followed by 1998. For the 2016 Pro Bowl, we have to go defense, so let's bring in Bobby Wagner as our backup middle linebacker, and as for the 1998 Pro Bowl, let's go with Keyshawn Johnson of the Jets to be wide receiver number 3. Still missing a few positions on our roster, and if we can't fill those positions, we will be stuck with a free agent. Spinning the wheel once again, and this time it lands on 1996. We could go with Aeneas Williams or Bruce Smith, but since we only have one corner on the team, let's bring in Williams as our cornerback number 2. Speeding this up a little, the next two wheel spins lands on 2004 and 2011. Since we desperately need a center on the team, let's bring in Kevin Mawai, who played for the Titans, to join the team. And for 2011, I'm bringing in Champ Bailey of the Commanders to be cornerback number 1, moving Ramsey and Williams down the depth chart. Not many teams left, but the next wheel spin lands on 2001. The only player left is David Akers, and he'll be our starting kicker. With just 6 NFL teams left, the next two wheel spins lands on 2008 Pro Bowl and the 1999 Pro Bowl. Not a whole lot of options with the remaining teams, but I decided to bring in Steve Smith from the Panthers, and as for 1999, Junior Seau will join the linebacker core, knocking out the Panthers and Patriots from the list. And the next wheel spin lands on the 1987 Pro Bowl. There was only one offensive option we could go with, and that was Anthony Munoz, who will share some reps with Joe Thomas. This is where it gets really challenging. We might be stuck with some free agents at starting positions. Spinning the wheel twice, and it lands on 1993 and then 2009. Easy choice for the 1993 Pro Bowl with Bruce Smith joining the defensive line, and for 2009, we are stuck bringing in Drew Brees as a backup QB. With just the Falcons left, the next wheel spin lands on the 2006 Pro Bowl, and D'Angelo Hall was one of the selections, and he'll be our depth cornerback on the roster. And just like that, our offense is looking amazing with Patrick Mahomes leading the way, and the defense should be able to win plenty of games. I did have to bring in some free agents to fill some starting positions. Let's just hope it doesn't hurt our chances at winning a Super Bowl. The opening game of the season against the Seattle Seahawks started off surprisingly with Kenneth Walker scoring the first touchdown of the game. The team of Pro Bowlers were down 3 in the third quarter before Walter Payton breaks multiple tackles and gets into the end zone. Although it took some time to get started, Patrick Mahomes was able to find Hall of Fame receiver Jerry Rice in the end zone to win their first game of the season by a score of 35-10. Mahomes ended up throwing for 294 yards and 2 touchdowns. And after simming the rest of the season, the team of Pro Bowlers ended up going 17-0 and have a first-round bye heading into the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes finished first in the NFL with 4,600 passing yards, 52 touchdowns, and just 4 interceptions this season, while Walter Payton was unstoppable. Surprisingly enough, Keyshawn Johnson finished first in the NFL with 1,500 receiving yards, while Jerry Rice and Justin Jefferson were close behind. And to no one's surprise, Reggie White, J.J. Watt, and Aaron Donald absolutely crushed it this season. We now take on the 11-6 Packers in the divisional round. And the team of Pro Bowlers were just too much for the Packers to handle as they scored early and often. They went on to easily defeat Jordan Love and the Packers 44-10, with Mahomes having another big game. Next up is the 12-5 Philadelphia Eagles led by Jalen Hurts. And the Eagles' opening drive could not have started worse, with Aaron Donald coming up with a big-time sack. Mahomes quickly got his team into scoring position before handing it off to Walter Payton, who finds his way into the end zone to open the scoring. And just before halftime, the team of Pro Bowlers find the end zone once again, this time to Jerry Rice. The second half was more of the same, and the team of Pro Bowlers went on to win the NFC Championship game by a score of 27-7. The defense was able to hold Jalen Hurts to just 164 yards and 1 touchdown this game. Patrick Mahomes went on to win NFL MVP, and Walter Payton won Offensive Player of the Year. We now take on the 11-6 Chargers in the Super Bowl led by Justin Herbert. The Chargers put together a long opening opening possession, but ended up settling for 3. Mahomes quickly got his team down the field with a nice pass to Keyshawn Johnson before finding Jeremy Shockey over the middle for a touchdown. And they continued to put that pressure on, with Mahomes keeping it for himself and scrambling into the end zone to take a 14-3 lead. Only up 1 score, the team of Pro Bowlers managed to find the end zone once again. This time, it was to Justin Jefferson. The defense was playing lights out, and the offense rewarded them with another touchdown. Although Herbert was able to find Mike Williams in the end zone to cut the lead, it was not enough, and the team of Pro Bowlers went on to win the Super Bowl and completed the perfect 20-0 season. If you enjoyed this video, you should definitely go check out where I used one birth year from every NFL team. We'll see how they did.